Good morning. It is Friday, September 14th, 2012. This is Jason Horak. We are taking a look today at the 1987 Dodge Daytona Shelby Z that I have converted from gas power to 100% battery electric. Now, as you can see, looking at it from the outside, it looks pretty much stock. These cars are kind of rare these days. Being a 1987, to find one that's in good condition is kind of rare to begin with, and to find one that's been converted to 100% battery electric, I think there's only one in the world, and we're looking at it right now. So that's kind of neat. Anyway, these cars back in the 80s were relatively inexpensive, and so a lot of people bought them as like sporty little daily drivers and drove them all the time and beat them up pretty good because they were cheap and it didn't matter, and then throw them out. So that's why there aren't very many of them left. And I just happen to like 80s Dodge Daytonas, again, because they're kind of rare, and I just like the style. I was kind of a child of the 80s, and I thought it was cool. So anyway, this is the car that I chose as my donor vehicle to turn into an electric car. And the main reason was that this particular one didn't have any rust on it. It was kind of a southern car, and I figured it would be a good donor. So the paint is not original. It's actually was painted by the previous owner, who I don't believe ever had the car running. He got the car, I think, in a non-running state. The engine, there's some problems with the engine, and while it was sitting in his garage waiting for money to get repaired, he ended up doing the paint job himself. So it's not perfect, but it actually looks pretty decent, I think. And for a 1987, it's got dings and nicks and scratches and so forth, but I drive this car every single day. It is what I take to work. It is what I do my errands in, and I drive it all winter. I'm in central New York, where we get some pretty substantial amount of snow, in the wintertime, and salt on the roads and slush and all that good stuff. So to have a perfect show vehicle with unmarred paint and stuff that just lives in the garage all the time, that's not really useful to me. So this car I can drive, and if somebody bumps into it with a shopping cart, I don't mind as much. So anyway, as you can see, it's reasonably stock. It's got all 4 seats, which is also kind of rare in the electric vehicle space. A lot of sports cars are 2-seaters because you've got a lot more room in the back for extra batteries and stuff. But this car, I wanted it, it originally seated 4 people, and it was important to me that it still seats 4 after it's electric. So what we're going to do is go over some changes that I've done just pretty much this summer, but mostly since last year, around this time. It's end of September. I took the car to the first annual Electric Vehicle Converters Convention in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. That's hosted by EVTV, and I've just done a lot to change the car since then. So we'll go ahead and go over all the details here in just a second. But mainly I just wanted to show you what it looked like from the outside. Basically just like a stock 1987 Dodge Daytona. So there's the cargo cover in the back, and it's still a manual just like it was before, and all that good stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and pop the hood and show you what it's all about. So we'll be right back. Okay, the first thing you may notice is that the wheels look a little bit spiffier than they did last year. These are the original aluminum alloy wheels, the same rims that were on the car last year, but we now have brand new tires. These are Continental Pro Contact Eco Plus tires, and the rims themselves, we've gone through and removed the old clear coat, as well as sanded them so they look really nice. And as of yesterday, I found those center caps pulled off of some of my other Daytonas and sanded them down, got them painted with kind of a metallic silver paint, Rust-Oleum, that just kind of really made them come out nice. So I'm liking the look of the wheels, and I think we're ready to go there. The number on the side of the car is from the original Electric Vehicle Conversion Convention last year, 2011, and they had a drag race and autocross events, so they gave us these stickers so that they could identify each car, and most people took them off immediately after the race. They didn't want to ruin their paint or whatever. This paint is what came on my car originally, and it's it was repainted by the previous owner. It wasn't the original from '87, but so it was kind of beat up and dinged, and it doesn't really bother me to leave the sticker on. So I wanted to leave the sticker on at least through this year's convention, just because I thought it would be cool to show up at the convention with the sticker from last year. I don't know, kind of a nerdy thing, I suppose, but whatever. After this year's convention, I will be taking it off because I'm going to be having the car painted. And I'm thinking candy apple red, but that may change. Subject to change, we'll decide. I kind of like the bright red that it came with here, but we shall see. Anyway, so underneath in the back, we have the back battery box that kind of extends down a little bit. And this is the same as last year, but just kind of wanted to show you there's no exhaust pipe back here, and we kind of sacrificed the spare tire well in order to give space for more batteries. So further underneath, I'm not really sure how well this is going to come out, but you can kind of see another silver line there, just past the axle. That is the mid battery box that we've installed to get 4 more batteries into this car. So I'll try to get a better shot of it from the side, but that's pretty much the only difference in the back. So inside, it looks a little different. We're going to pop this open. And what we've done is put a large piece of plywood. It's kind of thin plywood, painted hammered black, so it'll disappear. And what that does is gives us a lot of all of our storage capacity back. So what we've lost out of the trunk for the battery box itself is, I don't know, about 4 inches there from the bottom to the top of this, just kind of in the center. And then the rest of the storage area is more or less stock. So really we haven't lost much in terms of carrying capacity in this car. The back seats still fold down, and we could put sheets of plywood in here and all that good stuff. Anything that would fit normally in a Dodge Daytona from the 80s would still fit in here, with the exception of that 4 inches on the bottom. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this piece of plywood off, which shows us our rear battery box. So these are the 30 batteries that are in the back. Again, pretty much the same as last year. One important thing to note is that the charger, which normally would sit behind the driver's side rear seat, isn't here. And that's because it's in Washington at Manzanita Micro getting repaired at this very moment. Now, it's kind of an interesting story about that, because as it turns out, the charger had a problem internally and broke. Something about an IGBT, and I don't know if that was caused by a power surge in the line or just an aging part. I bought it back in early 2010, but I've shipped that back to Manzanita. They're fixing it up for me, and they're also upgrading it to they have a new feature where they can add a volt setting that's you push like these buttons on the front, and it gives you a numeric display of the volts that it's being set to, as opposed to using the special plastic screwdriver and a volts trim knob, or a potentiometer rather, that you keep turning until you get it just right. Anyway, it should be a nice upgrade, and I figured since they've got it in for service, they should do the upgrade. I heard from Clarice and Jeanette, which are two ladies that work at Manzanita, that I spoke with on the phone, and apparently Rich Rudman, who's the owner of the company, the CEO, I'm not really sure, the guy who started it all, as far as I know, he is going to be coming to the convention, to the Electric Vehicle Conversion Convention, and he's going to meet me in Cape Girardeau with my charger. So that's kind of cool that he's bringing it in person. Kind of saves me on some shipping, and I get to meet the man behind the charger. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, moving right along to other changes that have happened since last year. Interior, mostly the same. Again, we still have the original four seats from the vehicle. It's still a manual transmission, just like it was before. But as for what has changed since last year, go ahead and step in here. Sorry about the shaky cam work. What we've done is changed out the analog gauges for these cool digital gauges, and so this particular instrument cluster came from a 1988 Dodge Daytona, the Pacifica that used to be the electric vehicle. And so anyway, I figured I'd put it in this car, and just because it looks cool, and the odometer didn't work in the original manual cluster with the needles that I took out to the convention last year, so I couldn't really tell, my range and how far it went. As far as the car went on a charge, as well as just in general how much mileage the car had, I had no idea. So this odometer does function, and the tachometer works and all that good stuff, so that's kind of cool. The tachometer is kind of neat. Let me go ahead and rev it just so you can kind of see what it does. So it's digital, so that's just kind of cool. So anyway, that's a change from last year. Also, we had all these switches last year that control all the electric vehicle systems. That's the same, and but the big change this year is the close that door. The instrument, or the meter, and the sun is really bright, so it's hard to make out, which is interesting because I can see it just fine, but the camera does not pick up any of the numbers at all, just with this particular lighting. But anyway, it's 196.8 volts is what it's showing right now, and there used to be a piece of plexiglass in front of this little picture of the car, and that picture of the car shows, like, when you open a door, it lights up, open the trunk, all that kind of stuff. And this is the fuel light that would come up when it was low fuel. Loud trucks going by. So what I did is I put this button here underneath it. That's also new, and that is hooked up to yet another new device that is from Australian. It's from Australia. I can't remember the name of the company right off the top of my head, but they make this little device that goes around one of the cables, and it measures the amp hours consumed in the pack, kind of a rough estimate, and that you hook up to your fuel gauge. So this is the original stock fuel gauge for the car. It's built into this dashboard, and now that's hooked up and actually registering as I drive the car. It will it will go down. It's not calibrated right now because of charger issues, but That's okay. So anyway, by pushing this button, I can reset that to show the full point of the car. You know, it makes this meter read full whenever you press that button. And the idea is after you've completed a full charge, you'll press that button and it'll calibrate the device so that it knows where the full point is. Anyway, so that's about it inside. Oh wait, there's one more relatively significant upgrade that just happened within the last couple days, and that is, and probably really hard to see, I have a router underneath there, and that is one of my clients had turned in a router. Their technicians told them that it was dead, and so they gave it to me and said, hey, if you can make it work, it's yours. So I reflashed the firmware, and it fixed the problem, and the router works just fine. So anyway, I have that in here, and I've got it wired in with the, if I can get this out of here, I'm not sure if the camera's picking this up or not, but that is a little outlet, like an AC inverter, that allows me to plug that thing in and gives me a place to plug in my laptop if I want to. So, you know, charge a cell phone, plug in a laptop, etc. So anyway, internally or inside, that's about it for changes. And so now let's go take a look under the hood. Alright, we're going to take a look under the hood in just a second, but what I want to do is try to show you underneath the mid battery box so you can get an idea of the clearance. So it doesn't really stick down below the profile or the bottom of the car any more than the original stuff did, and you can kind of see it right there. So that box is brand new this year, and last year we just had a bunch of cables kind of coiled underneath, but now the cables are all up under as far away as possible, and you know, it's pretty clean down here. So that's what's going on there. And what we're going to do is now take a look under the hood. So the first thing that you may notice is the batteries. There are a few more batteries up here than there were last year. We had, oh, and you can see them. That's the other big change. We had a piece of aluminum cover that was on here that basically had a piece of blue foam insulation underneath that piece of aluminum that protected the batteries, also kept them somewhat insulated during the winter time. Well, in order to take the car to various shows, I wanted to be able to have them see the batteries because it's much more visually impressive than a big piece of metal. So I did a plexiglass sheet, and now you can see them. But there are also more batteries up front than there were last year, because last year we had a kind of a notch that was roughly where this battery, like in this section right here, there was a cutout where the power steering pump used to be, and it went down onto the tail shaft of the motor. It had a belt that's gone, and so that was you know, just kind of a big change this year. Now we have this guy, which is the filler for the electric power steering pump, and then the electric power steering pump is down in there, buried where it's just not really possible to see at this point. That serves a couple functions. One, I had mounted it down where the catalytic converter was in the original gas car, so there's kind of a space there, and it worked out good. That puts the noisy power steering pump down underneath where it's as isolated as I can get it from the passenger compartment and from the outside, and gets it out of the way, gets the job done. So I now have electric power steering that's extremely loud and obnoxious, but at least I can turn it off when I don't need it. So that was that. So we now have, so again, last year we had 23 batteries up front, and these are the China Aviation Lithium Battery Company 180 amp hour cells. And this year we have 26 up front, 4 in that mid battery box, and 30 in the back. So for a total of 60 batteries in the car, which are all 60 that I originally purchased back in early 2010 for this vehicle. So another major change from last year is the DC to DC converter. Now I had a Vicor Mega Pack just kind of in this space right here, and it worked really good, but it was very loud and obnoxious, so I swapped it out for a Chinook DC to DC converter that I got from EVTV, and that's the one that's in there now. It unfortunately makes a very annoying hissing sound. I don't know why. I figured it would eventually go away, but it's been in here for a couple months now, and it's still making a hissing. With the background noise outside, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it's still making it. And it still works, so I'm not sure what that's all about. I'll have Jack take a look at it when I'm out in Missouri and just see if he thinks that it's something funky going on, or if I got a bad unit or what. But anyway, it does function, so whatever. So the other change here is that this shunt box was a Victron Energy shunt box that was with the original electric car, the first one I built, and I bought it from Blue Sea. Well, Blue Sea Systems is associated with the gauge, but I bought it from a marine company online, and it was just a cool item. But that item didn't last very long. The circuit board blew, and it was kind of useless. So rather than try to get the thing repaired, I ended up repurposing its box with this new, much larger shunt. So this is a 75 millivolt shunt that's capable of, I believe, 1,000 amps. It might be 1,500, but I got it from, again, EVTV, and that's what drives the gauge, that little JLD 404 gauge that's inside the passenger compartment. So that's how it tracks as electricity flows across this shunt. It measures with those two little leads how many amps have gone by. So that's how it tracks it. That little blue device, you can kind of barely see also in the box, that's what's hooked to the gas meter, or gas gauge in the car. And that's the thing that I can reset with a little silver button inside. So all of that is wired. Again, it's probably hard to see, but there's a Ethernet cable with an Ethernet junction box there, or sorry, Ethernet jack, that I just wired into all this stuff, and that way it takes it into the passenger compartment in a relatively controlled fashion with twisted pair wire, and I haven't noticed any electromagnetic stuff coming off of that. So otherwise, the high voltage wiring shelf is pretty much exactly as it was last year. So, you know, positive and negative, got the fuse. This contactor is hooked to the heater elements, which is kind of in there. This is the maintenance disconnect switch. You know, it's the slap switch. We can hit that and it'll just disconnect the pack. And yeah, so anyway, that really hasn't changed much. Everything else has changed around it, but not that. So the car is currently on, and other than the annoying little bubbling noise that the DC to DC converter makes, it's silent. So let's go ahead and rev our throttle. And that's what it sounds like when the motor spins. It's pretty quiet. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to catch this on camera, but one of the other changes that we made was the RPM sensor is right down there. You can kind of see it. blinking. I hope you can see it blinking on the camera, but I have a little light in it that tells you that it's working, and just down there at the bottom. So as it was spinning, it blinks, kind of telling you that it's sending a pulse or a signal. And that's kind of cool, because the net gain controls, or the warp speed sensor that I had before, was picking up a lot of noise, and I was getting weird spikes on my tachometer display, and so that just, wasn't nearly as cool. So anyway, the EVCCON Soliton 1 is under here, where it was last year. This is the one. This particular unit is actually the one that Sebastian Bourgeois of EVCCON installed for me when my previous one blew up, or had a problem. Actually, it didn't blow up, but. And so as you can see, that's where the Soliton is mounted underneath, pretty much where the radiator was originally in the car, which gives it maximum airflow. And there you go. So that's that. And this is the motor, the NetGain Warp 9 motor, same one that was in here before. This year we had upgraded the brushes, so and they're kind of in this side on the commutator. We replaced the original stock brushes with the Hellwig Carbon special brushes, and we replaced the clutch, pressure plate, and we were going to replace the flywheel, but we have a spec Stage 3 Plus clutch in the transmission, or in the bell housing there now, as well as the spec throwout bearing. Replaced that as well. Right now we're still using the original steel/iron flywheel due to issues that I had with the aluminum flywheel. But anyway, as you can see, things are pretty clean under here. They don't really, nothing really hangs down to get caught on anything, and we're ready to drive through another central New York winter. So here are the tires, brand new, low rolling resistance, Continental Pro Contact Eco Plus tires, and they should last me hopefully through the winter, assuming I can keep my alignment reasonably in check. So anyway, I think that pretty much covers all the changes that have happened since about June 23rd of this year. And the car is ready to go to ship to Missouri. I anticipate a call from the shipping company any minute now. I mean, it's, they said sometime today. They didn't give me a specific, but the car's ready to go, and I'm pretty excited about going to the convention this year. It's going to be a lot bigger than it was last year, and there'll be more cars there to check out, and probably more going on as far as the seminars and so forth. But I think it'll be fun, and it'll be nice to actually be able to drive my car instead of repairing it the entire time when I'm there. So biggest thing is, when I first show up, I won't be able to charge for a couple days while I'm waiting for Rich Rudman to come down with my charger. So that's not a huge deal. I might be able to get Jack Rickard to let me use one of his chargers. I do have a standard Anderson connector that's in that middle battery box. I can just plug right in, as well as a NEMA 14-50 outlet in that box, which is what hooks to the fuel filler port on the side, just like it did last year. But anyway, that's it for today, September 14th, 2012. I'll probably be getting back to you next when I'm in Missouri with the car. And we're tooling around Missouri doing all kinds of who knows what. So take care and have a wonderful day.